Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel. Hope you guys are all well. Today we are talking about Manchester United. Quite shocking, right? But something has come to my mind recently, basically. So there's been a lot of talk on the channel recently about how can Manchester United learn to play through the press when they don't have press-resistant players, or specifically, they don't have that press-resistant 8. We've all spoken about the need for a Frankie de Jong sort of profile in the team, and I completely agree. I really think this should be the priority in the summer, and you know, a lot of top analysis accounts on Twitter, on YouTube are saying the same thing. However, it did just get me thinking, are there other solutions to it if you can't do that? If you can't sign a Frankie de Jong or a Benacer or a Kakare, whoever you want to sign, if you can't do that, is there a different solution? And you know, in my head I'm going, well, not really, you need that because Ten Hag has always needed that. He loves a press-resistant midfielder. You know, a lot of his success at Ajax came from having that sort of player. But did it actually? Because this very picture here is from last season as Ajax won the league. And a lot of people would argue this was Ten Hag's best side at Ajax. Like the best they ever had under Ten Hag. However, there wasn't a press-resistant midfielder in this side. So, got me thinking, what were Ajax doing last season without a press-resistant midfielder to be one of the best possession teams in the world? What were they doing? So of course, that is what we're going to look at today. And we're going to look at how maybe Manchester United might be able to do certain things similar, how maybe they can't do certain things. Let's have a look. And it starts with this Ajax team, which isn't here right now. One sec. So this is Ajax team from last season. This is what they kind of tried to set up in as much as possible. This was their most common kind of starting team. And this base of what, 5, 6, 7, 8 deeper players was the idea of how they wanted to play. It was very often these 8 starting. And what we can see is that there isn't an abundance of press-resistant midfielders here. Edson Alvarez is a good player, an intelligent player, but not particularly press-resistant in my opinion. Gravenberch, a very good footballer, however, he was very often left out of the build-up phase, he was pushed much higher, and the same for Bergwijn as well. So what did they do? Because they're playing out of the press without a press-resistant midfielder, something that United needs to try and do. So, let's take a look. Basically, what Ajax done was they built out from the back using a diamond, with the goalkeeper, the 2 centre-backs, and Edson Alvarez. And it was actually incredibly effective, and we'll look at why in a second. So they have this diamond at the back, and then what they've done was push their fullbacks initially quite wide. Now we will come back onto the fullbacks because they are very, very important. However, what they initially done was played with this diamond at the back. And the reason that they were able to do this is because, one, they signed Pazvir, a goalkeeper who, I mean, all round as a goalkeeper isn't actually that great. However, his passing is very, very good. And then also they got 2 centre-backs in Timber and Lisandro Martinez, who we're all familiar with, who are 2 of the most technically gifted, press-resistant players in the world at the moment. Not even just centre-backs, just players in the world at the moment. 2 very press-resistant footballers. And then they had Edson Alvarez, who, like I said, wasn't very press-resistant. However, this system alone, just having the 4 players there, with a few of them being technically secure, allowed them to actually play around most pressing structures. So, for example, the centre-backs could be quite wide, and this is going to make it difficult for a pressing striker. And it's just constant different movements, which meant that no matter how the opposition pressed, they couldn't really get too close to them. Now, it all came because Pazvir was very good with the ball at his feet. Now, I'm not talking about sending the ball long in the way which someone like Ramsdale or Ederson do. He could do that, but it's not really what he was in the team for. It was all about short passing and really being involved in the play-out. He wasn't a goalkeeper. He was the first defender in terms of playing with the ball at his feet. That was how he was perceived in the team. Now, something else which allowed them to play out from the back here was the rotations as well. Because, as I've already said, Alvarez wasn't the most press-resistant midfielder. At times what we would see is Timber stepping forward into the midfield and Alvarez playing deeper. Now, the reason for this is because when you are in this centre-back position, you are playing facing play. Whereas when you are in midfield, where Timber is here, and you receive the ball, you've got your back to play. So the job that you are doing is very, very different, and you're put under a very different type of pressure. Timber here has got his back to play, he's maybe got to drop a shoulder and turn, whereas Alvarez here has got to play in front of him so he can see things a bit easier. There's less expectancy to turn, instead he's just playing the ball forward. So again, this is something which they've done very, very well. Ten Hag got his players into positions which suited them. Now, to be fair, I would make the argument that Casemiro and Lisandro Martinez could do something similar at United. We could see Casemiro drops into left centre-back, Lisandro Martinez moves in as the holding midfielder. It could kind of be a similar pattern. But now let's take a look at how that particular pattern, and just this diamond in general, actually allowed them to play through pretty much every pressing structure. I want to talk to you about an amazing tool to help you become a more composed and confident footballer.
Be Your Best is football training in virtual reality. Developed by experts in Norway, it's the perfect way to improve cognitive performance, improving scanning, decision making and memory from anywhere in the world. In Be Your Best, you will go through over 800 scenarios recreated from professional games. A bit like this one from Luka Modric. You'll play from his point of view and receive feedback for your performance along the way. Be Your Best is used by athletes from all around the world, with Arsenal star Martin Odegaard using it in his return from injury, and it's also backed by science, with a recent 9-week study seeing players increase their scan rate by a staggering 28%, and now you can get 20% off your first month or year by using code HUB20 at checkout. So make sure to use beyourbest.com or use the link in the description.
So one way that a lot of modern day teams press is with the wingers coming narrow, and we'll often see them kind of taking up this position between a centre back and a full back. And I kind of do this, and then they'll have the striker splitting the two centre backs as well. And it's a pretty good pressing system. However, using this diamond plus the wide full backs, Ajax were able to play out of it time and time again quite easily. Now, one of the reasons for this is because they can outnumber the striker here. However, if the wingers are going to come narrow, it does make it a little more difficult. However, what this opens up is Pazvir's ability to pass over the top to Mazraoui. Now, you might say, well, surely the fullback can come up and engage that. But that wasn't the case because Ajax had so much width. I think it would have been Anthony at the time in this area. The fullback wasn't able to go super high and press. So basically, Ajax could just clip the ball over your pressing structure and get into the fullback areas and then have a lot of room for progression. Now, of course, teams eventually learned this and were like, okay, we can't push our wingers so narrow, so high. So instead, let's do the opposite. Let's put them deeper on the fullbacks because now, Ajax, you can't pass to your fullbacks and progress from there. Ha! Well, not really, because the joke is now on them. Because now what they've got themselves into, the opposition, even if they commit an extra midfielder forward, is a 4 versus 2 situation, which Ajax, especially with technical players, are clearly going to win. Again, with Timber moving into this area, he's got this ability to deal with this man-to-man pressure, but also we can see that the 3 players at the back here, with Pazvir, Alvarez and Lisandro Martinez, are easily going to outnumber the pressing forward. So again, it's very easy. And then finally, the other structure which some teams might use to try and press these days is a front 2. Often we might see a number 10 kind of moving forward with the striker. However, again, Ajax had a solution to that, and it was Pazvir. Pazvir stepping forward into a back 3. He's not staying back here on his goal line, he's stepping forward like this. And what this does, as we often talk about actually in the middle third of the pitch, is one, it allows the centre-backs to play a bit wider, which means that they can step forward. Now, the result of that is that the forwards have to split wider. This then means that you can play about a bit more. So that was happening on both sides, but of course also you've simply got the split pass. So you've either got, the opposition, I've got to come narrow like this to kind of stop this pass being played through the middle, but then you're allowing 2 of the best progressing centre-backs in the world to step forward, or you've got to go wide and deal with that, but then you're leaving the middle of the pitch open. It really was very, very simple how they got out from goal kicks, and it actually worked time and time again quite smoothly. Now, of course, playing through pressure isn't just about the goal kick, you can get the ball towards the middle third of the pitch and still be pressed and still have to deal with that. And of course, the way that you deal with that is different because you haven't got Pazvir there. The goalkeeper isn't going to come up all the way to the halfway line to help you out. So again, Ajax needed different shapes that they could use. But again, the important thing was exactly that. They used different shapes. It wasn't a fixed shape which kind of always stays in one position. They move about. You think Zinchenko at Arsenal this season. Sometimes he's popping up out wide, sometimes he's in midfield, sometimes he's almost in a right central midfield spot. He moves about the pitch and it makes it very difficult for the opposition to read it. And that's exactly what Ajax was so good at last season. Again, Gravenberch and Bergwijn weren't really involved in this too much. Occasionally we would see Gravenberch drop deep to get the ball and move it forward with his carries, but it wasn't a big part of how Ajax played. Instead, it was all about the rotations at the back, and the fact that all of these players can play in several different positions. So one thing they could do is drop Alvarez into a back 3 like this, move one of the fullbacks central, and they're now kind of playing with a 3-2, which is off balance. Mazraoui and Daley Blind, both very capable of playing in this position, but also they could literally move both fullbacks into the middle. And again, what this does is it changes the shape. It allows someone like Timber to now step forward with the ball. It allows Martinez to step forward with the ball. But again, you've got 2 very technically secure players in the middle, all whilst the whole time the wingers are much higher off screen here, providing the width for the team. So it works very well. But also what they could do is move into more of a kind of typical modern day 2-3 shape with Alvarez in the middle, the fullbacks out wide like this. Again, it just creates a different angle and a different problem because the opposition are pressing with one striker, so again the centre-backs can step forward if they need to. Also, we could see one of the fullbacks coming narrow and the other staying wide like this, and again it's just constantly shifting the angle. And again, if we bring our Anthony in at the wide place here, with Mazraoui coming inside, it again allows this forward ball. It's just Ajax constantly moving different players into different positions to move the opposition about. And then what's the other shape it could be? It could be a back three like this, with one of the fullbacks dropping in. And again, it's just a different way of moving the opposition, because now this winger has a different job on his hand because he's moving into a different area. This then opens up the pitch for someone like Gravenberch to drop into. So again, it's just Ajax constantly moving their players into different positions, and it just worked so well. Now, of course, for this to work, you need to have a squad of intelligent technical players, and that's exactly what Ten Hag had with Ajax. Timber, Lisandro Martinez, Daley Blind and Mazraoui in particular, like I've already said, were all very good at moving into different positions. They could all receive the ball under pressure, turn out of a situation and play from there. Very good close control, very confident on the ball. Edson Alvarez was the slight exception, not being quite as press resistant, however he was still very intelligent. But having 4 out of 5 players in those areas that were very good, add Pazvir in as well, you got 5 out of 6, was a huge thing for them. The question is, can Manchester United do that? Well, let's take a look to see if they could use some of the same principles, and if they can't currently, then what they need to do in the future to be able to do so. So as I said there, the question is, can United do something similar? And what we're going to see is the problem. What I was saying about Ajax was the 6 players in this position, 5 of them were very technically secure, with Alvarez kind of being the exception. If we now look at this Manchester United team, it's very different. David De Gea compared to Pazvir, nowhere near as good on the ball. Varane compared to Jurrien Timber, nowhere near as good on the ball. And even Dalot, he's good on the ball, but he isn't the level of Mazraoui. So add that with the fact that Casemiro is kind of similar to Alvarez in this sense, you've got a problem. Because Manchester United simply don't have the technicians. And this is where we now see a problem. If United try and make this diamond, for example, let's go through to some of the situations that Ajax were going through. The opposition wingers are going to press really narrow like this. What we were saying the solution was for Ajax was they could chip it out to the fullbacks. David De Gea can't do that. So then it puts him under pressure because now he can only pass to Varane, Martinez or Casemiro, all who are man-marked. And with Varane not being particularly press resistant, we can see the problem. So it comes from Varane maybe not being good enough on the ball, but also De Gea not being anywhere near good enough. The other thing we were talking about was the opposition maybe pressing in, a front 2? Something like this. We were talking about how, the goalkeeper can make the diamond and allow you to play through this front 2. Again, De Gea isn't a player which wants to step into this area and, help his team out in this way. He's just not very good at it. So what you therefore lose is that ability to create the angles which Ajax done so well last season. So again, it's just a problem which this team has, and unfortunately, it means that Manchester United probably can't implement the ideas. Not this season. However, what it does point to is the fact that maybe Ten Hag might be able to turn his attention away from someone like Frenkie de Jong. We're talking, again, Frenkie de Jong, Benacer, Kakare, Enzo Lefebvre. There's loads of different players who are kind of linked with that sort of role. Manu Kone even. Loads of different players being linked. What this video kind of points to, though, is that maybe Ten Hag could do something differently. Maybe if he went for, let's say, a goalkeeper, a right centre-back, maybe, Costa in goal, Kim Min-jae centre-back, and then Jurrien Timber at right-back, I think that would suddenly change the ability to play out from the back. And maybe then you don't need your press-resistant 8. Maybe, like I said it the other day in a video, I want to try and figure out some different ways which United could play out from the back. Unfortunately, this isn't really a solution for this season. However, it is a solution for the future, moving forward. So, what was the purpose of this video? Good question. Basically, I wanted to point to you guys about how, there are different ways of being press resistant, how Ajax done it so well last season under Ten Hag, but perhaps why we actually haven't seen it at United this season. Because, one of his play-out systems used a press-resistant 8 in Frenkie de Jong. United don't have that. The other used and utilised the press resistance of the right-back, the right centre-back, and the goalkeeper. And again, United don't have that. So, I think what it shows also is that this isn't just a case of signing a press-resistant 8 and it's job done. There's still a lot of work for Ten Hag to do with this team. Even if he was to sign Frenkie de Jong, who really would be the ideal, there's still a lot of work to do. However, it just shows a different way that United could approach the transfer market, and it's why we shouldn't necessarily assume that press-resistant 8 will be brought into the club. Ten Hag might take a different approach. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Why do you think that Ajax shape worked so well last season? Do you think there is any way that United can implement it with the current squad without any transfers? Let me know what you think, and if not, who should they sign in the summer to try and address this, and is it a better solution than a first phase 8? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.